It is historically known that the race to produce the first atomic weapon was between the United States of America and Nazi Germany. Eventually, the United States emerged as the winner, aided by hundreds of prominent scientists, engineers, and workers. In August 1945, the United States used atomic weapons against Japan by bombing the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, resulting in the deaths of over 200,000 people. These bombings completely destroyed the two cities and ultimately led to Japan's surrender in World War II. However, an overlooked interesting topic amidst the events of World War II is that the Empire of Japan itself, the only victim of nuclear weapons in history, was also one of the competitors in the race to obtain the first atomic bomb. Japan was already aware of the immense destructive power of atomic energy and sought to utilize it in creating a devastating superweapon during the war. So, what is the story of the Japanese atomic bomb? And what if Japan had actually managed to possess atomic weapons during World War II? With the discovery of nuclear fission in 1938, scientists around the world realized the potential to create a superweapon with comprehensive destructive power by harnessing the enormous energy released. One of the most famous scientists involved was Albert Einstein, who, along with others, sent a letter to then U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt in 1939, warning about the possibility of Nazi Germany exploiting nuclear fission for destructive purposes. They urged the United States to initiate its own nuclear program and research for military applications. Meanwhile, in the Far East, Japanese scientists, including Professor Yoshio Nishina, the founder of nuclear physics in Japan, were also aware of this groundbreaking discovery. Dr. Nishina knew that the United States had already begun nuclear fission research in 1939, and he was concerned that Japan would lag behind in the race for military nuclear research. In 1940, he met with Lieutenant General Takeo Yasuda, the head of the Army's Aviation Technology Research Institute, to inform him about the possibility of using nuclear fission to create unprecedented weapons. Lieutenant General Yasuda, in turn, informed the Japanese Minister of War, Hideki Tojo, about Dr. Nishina's discovery, prompting Tojo to issue orders for immediate research on producing atomic weapons. In 1937, Dr. Nishina established his own nuclear research laboratory at the Riken Research Institute in Tokyo. There, he developed the first cyclotron device in Japan, making it the second such device in the world, after the United States. This meant that, at that time, only America and Japan possessed this advanced technology. Subsequently, in 1943, Nishina built a second cyclotron device at the Riken Institute. Initially, the task of manufacturing the atomic bomb in the Empire of Japan was divided between the Navy and the Army. However, the Navy did not show sufficient interest in the project, considering it unrealistic due to its massive budget requirements and the lengthy timeline for completion. The Japanese Navy firmly believed that even the United States would not be capable of producing an atomic bomb that could alter the course of World War II. They believed it would take decades to develop a single atomic bomb. Consequently, the Japanese Navy made the decision to abandon the atomic bomb project and shifted its focus towards the development of radar systems. Meanwhile, the Japanese Army dedicated all its attention and resources to the project led by Dr. Nishina. The secret project for the Japanese Army's atomic bomb development was named the NAGO Project, with the syllable NA representing the first two letters of Dr. Nishina's name. Right from the beginning, the Japanese atomic project encountered similar obstacles to those faced by the atomic bomb project in Nazi Germany. These obstacles included a lack of raw materials, insufficient funding, and inadequate collaboration among the project participants. For instance, when comparing the Japanese NAGO project to the American Manhattan Project for atomic bomb production, the United States allocated nearly $2 billion to the Manhattan Project, whereas the Japanese government only allocated a total value of $500,000 to the NAGO project. In other words, Japan's budget for the atomic bomb production project amounted to a mere 0.025% of the budget allocated by the United States to the Manhattan Project. Additionally, Japan did not possess the required amount of plutonium or uranium to produce an atomic bomb. However, it managed to obtain a small quantity of low-quality uranium from Korea, which was one of Japan's colonies at that time. Even Japan's ally, Nazi Germany, had a small amount of medium-quality uranium obtained from Czechoslovakia. Initially, Germany refused to cooperate with Japan in the nuclear project and provide the necessary uranium. This refusal may have been influenced by strained relations between Germany and Japan, stemming from Japan's refusal to attack the Soviet Union from the east and its efforts to implement the Fogo Plan, which aimed to cooperate with and assist Jewish refugees in settling in Japanese lands and colonies. On the other hand, the United States succeeded in acquiring a substantial amount of high-quality uranium from the Congo in Africa with the assistance of its allies, Belgium, Britain, and France. Due to the lack of resources, the Japanese were compelled to focus solely on developing one type of atomic bomb, namely the uranium bomb, while the United States was working on producing two types of bombs, the uranium bomb and the plutonium bomb. Furthermore, while the United States employed three different technologies for uranium enrichment, Japan relied solely on the thermal diffusion technology. These factors significantly hindered the progress of Japan's atomic bomb program and diminished the likelihood of Japan obtaining the atomic bomb before the Allies. However, despite these challenges, Dr. Nishina and his team persevered and sought to exploit the available capabilities and resources in their quest to create an atomic bomb at any cost. They successfully designed and manufactured a simple device for enriching uranium through thermal diffusion. In late 1944, they obtained samples of the uranium that were supposed to have been enriched by the device. However, when these samples were sent to the Riken Institute and tested using a cyclotron device to determine the level of enrichment, the shocking result emerged. Despite years of arduous work under difficult conditions and with limited resources, there had been no enrichment at all in the obtained uranium samples. The thermal diffusion uranium enrichment device was malfunctioning, leaving Dr. Nishina and his team profoundly disappointed by this outcome. As for the Japanese Navy, though initially uninterested in the atomic bomb project, their heavy losses and their desire to acquire any weapon capable of shifting the balance of power in their favor and deterring the besieging Allied fleets led them to reconsider developing their own atomic bomb in 1943. They initiated a secret project called F-GO, with the letter F representing the first letter of the word fission, referring to the nuclear fission process. Professor Bunsaku Arakatsu, who studied under renowned scientists such as Ernest Rutherford and Albert Einstein, managed this project. Arakatsu is considered the second most notable Japanese scientist in the field of nuclear physics, alongside Dr. Nishina. Dr. Arakatsu proposed an alternative technique for uranium enrichment, departing from Dr. Nishina's thermal diffusion method. Arakatsu designed an ultrafast centrifuge capable of rotating at 60,000 revolutions per minute, claiming that this device could enrich uranium in a shorter period and with higher quality. However, it is believed that Arakatsu's attempts, along with those of the Japanese Navy, remained confined to the design stage on paper and theoretical equations, since time was not in favor of the Japanese Empire. By the time Nazi Germany finally responded to Japan's request for uranium shipments, it was already too late. The German submarine U-234 embarked on a journey to Japan, carrying approximately half a ton of uranium, along with diagrams of advanced weapons and some German military equipment. Yet, with Germany's defeat in the war and its announcement of unconditional surrender, orders were given to the submarine crew to surface and surrender to the Allied forces. And on May 14, 1945, the U.S. Navy captured the German submarine in the Atlantic Ocean, and aboard the submarine were two Japanese Navy officers holding the rank of major. Upon learning of the submarine's capture, the two officers ended their lives. The American forces seized the uranium shipment and transported it to the United States, where it is said to have been used in the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, Japan, on August 6, 1945. With the intensification of the Allied forces' siege of the coasts of Japan and the increase in air raids on Tokyo and other Japanese cities, the chance of Japan making progress in the atomic bomb project significantly diminished. On April 13, 1945, during an American air raid on Tokyo, a substantial portion of the Riken Research Institute and the laboratory where Dr. Nishina and his team were conducting uranium enrichment experiments were bombed and destroyed. Following the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Japan's subsequent surrender, the Supreme Command of the Allied forces dismantled Japan's centrifuges and cyclotron devices used in the atomic project. These devices were located at the Riken Research Institute as well as the universities of Kyoto and Osaka. Consequently, Japan's aspirations of possessing atomic weapons during World War II came to a complete end. However, alternative reports emerged, suggesting a different narrative and claiming that Japan was much closer to possessing the atomic bomb than previously believed, and may have even acquired it. After World War II ended, and in the summer of 1946, American journalist David Snell published reports based on his encounters in Korea with a Japanese officer from the Counterintelligence Department, codenamed Captain Wakabayashi. According to Wakabayashi, during the Allied bombings of Tokyo and other Japanese cities, the Japanese government transferred its nuclear scientists, along with their equipment and devices, to Northern Korea. They established several laboratories and research facilities there, where Japan successfully produced an atomic bomb. Allegedly, on August 12, 1945, Japan conducted an experimental atomic detonation near Hongnam City on the east coast of Korea. However, Northern Korea fell under the control of the Soviet Army, who arrested the Japanese scientists and confiscated their research papers and designs for the atomic bomb. Snell suggested that the Soviet atomic program may have been built upon Japanese atomic research, as the Soviets successfully developed their first atomic bomb in 1949 and potentially shared nuclear technology with North Korea in the late 1950s. Captain Wakabayashi also informed Snell that Japan had planned to use atomic weapons against the Allied fleets besieging Japan, potentially loading the weapon onto a kamikaze aircraft and directing it towards concentrations of Allied ships and aircraft carriers. Interestingly, earlier in 1945, intelligence reports circulated in America about a Japanese scientist who delivered a speech to the Japanese parliament, claiming significant progress in developing a weapon capable of annihilating an entire enemy fleet with a single strike. The atomic bomb was the only weapon believed to possess such destructive power. Moreover, in 1942, while Japan was conducting atomic bomb research, the Japanese Air Force was designing the Nakajima G-10N intercontinental bomber, intended for strategic, ultra-long-range missions. Theoretically, this bomber could take off from Japan's Kuril Islands, fly eastward to bomb cities on the American West Coast and some Central American and northeastern states. It would then continue its journey to Europe, landing in German-occupied France for refueling and ammunition. However, due to Japan's deteriorating situation towards the end of World War II, the naval blockade imposed by the Allied forces, economic difficulties, and resource shortages, Japan canceled the plan to produce the Nakajima G-10N bomber. Many experts believed that such a strategic bomber, with its advanced specifications, would have been used to carry a special type of bombs, rather than conventional ones, to target America. Additionally, decoded messages from the Japanese embassy in Nazi Germany indicated that Germany had sent 2 submarines to Japan in August 1944, loaded with 12 German V-2 rockets. The V-2 rockets was considered the pinnacle of German technology at that time, with a range of 320 kilometers and an impressive altitude of 206 kilometers. It is likely that these rockets were intended for further development to enable them to be launched over much longer distances, potentially loaded with atomic warheads. Another piece of evidence supporting the theory that Japan possessed the atomic bomb is a statement made by Dr. Arakatsu in 1946, claiming that he and his team had achieved remarkable results in obtaining the atomic bomb. This statement contradicts the public information stating that Arakatsu and his team on the FGO project for the Japanese Navy had only reached the stage of theoretical designs on paper. Now, if we assume, in a completely imaginary scenario, that things had turned out differently, and that Japan had actually succeeded in making the atomic bomb, and that it had actually become capable of using it, what would have happened? How would the world change politically, militarily, and economically? Well, I can share with you some helpful starting points, such as, should Japan have considered using the atomic bomb to strike the Allied fleets that were besieging it? Could Japan have potentially utilized atomic bombings on China, aiming to overcome its significant population density and resilient resistance? Would it have been possible for Japan to contemplate striking one of the major American cities, say, along the West Coast? Feel free to unleash your imagination and create your own alternative scenarios in the comments.